Join us now for the City of Dillon Council meeting, brought to you by Hometown TV, serving Dillon and Marion counties.
First, I can get a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, approval of the minutes for the regular meeting, July 13th, 2020. Can I get a motion? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay? All right, well, I'll start out, a little bit in review of the meeting last time. I don't want ever anyone in Dillon or on this council to think that I've been on council for 25 some years and in a vacuum mayor pro tem now, that I'm getting secondary gain out of this. So I am formally removing all bids that I have with the city. And that is, I'm fine with this. If you want to send them, I'll take care of my patients that are part of the, part of the city. I'll accept the insurance. I'm going to do all that. I'm not turning my back on anybody. But as far as formal contract with the city, I'm removing my bids. I want to also make it clear that we direct Glenn to direct the department heads. We as individuals do not tell anyone to do anything. That being said, it's all right to call and say, Bert, somebody asked me about a ditch, you mind taking a look at it? I don't think that's a bad thing. But as far as directing policy and commanding allegiance and meetings, I do not think that this is the way this is supposed to work. We are a council. We make the decisions. We direct Glenn, and Glenn directs to our very capable and good department heads. And I don't know how you can handpick better people to serve this city. And I don't think I'll get any argument with that. So that being said, we're as far as COVID, we've got a couple of issues. We've had pretty high census in the hospital. If you look at the death rate in Dillon versus the number of cases, it's not favorable. I think statewide and even countrywide, they run about maybe 2% mortality, and in Dillon it's almost 4%. I really think that a lot of this is lack of testing, lack of availability of testing, and it's a little cumbersome to be tested. Still, for the most part, if you are in good health, without diabetes, obesity, heart failure, that you probably, if you contract the disease, you'll be fine. There are things that we can do. There's remdesivir, there's steroids, and certainly supports that we can offer you if your disease progresses. I think that we dodged a bullet on the hurricane. We had only about, Ben said he had a half inch at his house. I don't want water, but it sure would be nice to know where we are with what we've done, with the things that we've done with the storm drainage, and I think we're making good inroads there that maybe we'll be able to grab some of that going down First Street pretty soon. And that's all I have. Glenn?
We'll follow up with COVID-19.
we haven't done anything as far as a resolution or an ordinance to require face masks. And if I look around, you know, not only at this meeting, but here throughout town, I see people wearing them, see some people don't wear them. However, I think as a policy-making council, that we should recommend, not mandate, but recommend
Well, and
when possible.
yeah, I've thought about, and I'm glad that I haven't, just from a standpoint of position and Mayor Pro Tem putting something in the paper. And the things that I put in the paper this week will be wrong in 2 weeks. I think right now, the research, I'm not sure what the masks do, but it represents that you love your fellow man. It doesn't help you unless you're wearing an N95. Very few of those are around, none of them are in the room. But it doesn't need to be worn if you're 10 feet away, you know. But if you get within 10 feet of somebody, throw your mask up, you know. And it's that kind of attitude that we need to take.
And I know that Dillon Herald has constantly putting in the newspaper about wearing masks and recommending people wearing masks. The governor came out a week or so ago with his latest executive order, and one of the things is Executive Order 2050, 2020-50, which rescinded most all of his other executive orders that he had put in place since COVID-19. Restaurants, and he's allowing up to 50% occupancy rate in those, in restaurants. Tables have to be 6 feet apart. Limit seating per table to 8 unless it's a same family or household. Gatherings, which he gave definitions of gatherings to be anything from being at an amphitheater, a football stadium, any sporting event, a racetrack, and so on and so forth. 50% occupancy there if it's indoor, or no more than 250 if it's outdoor. And all attendees must wear face masks, which is one of the things, the reason we backed off a month ago on the festival. Not sure in what direction that would go, but no way we would be able to follow the protocols that you would have to follow. And then the party that is responsible for the gathering shall take all steps to comply with all the guidelines. Now, these ordinances or these executive orders that he has put in place, especially the last one, number 50, it does not apply to state meetings or official business of the state or any county and city state meetings or official business of the state, nor does it apply to public schools and elections, meaning that you don't have an occupancy rate there. You do not have to follow the guidelines of 6 foot apart, things of that nature. But you know, we're still doing it here, and I think we should. And that brings
Good example. How do you do it?
Yeah. And that brings me to my next question. I don't know how many of you remember that we were going to meet here today. I know Tina sent out a text late this afternoon. I put in my letter. And I think we just need to continue to meet here, because if we're going to follow what we're doing here, you know, most of these folks wouldn't be in the actual council chambers, because there would be staff taking up most of the seat that would be available. So if you don't mind, we will plan for our next meeting in September to be here as well. We talked about last month buildings being condemned and being torn down, and one of them that we talked about was a 200 block of East Main Street, which is owned by the Madison Estate. That would be the building directly across from Council on Aging and what I call the old medicine shop. When we just got a quote, and one person just to give us some idea. This would be the demo of the building, doing this asbestos survey and the asbestos demoing. $30,500 is what that cost would be. And if memory serves me correctly, is that what we spent on that one on Hampton Street?
Yes, sir.
About the same amount of money?
Yes, sir.
So in that case, we did it and we took that, we paid for it and we put a lien on that property. So whenever that property on Hampton Street is sold, we get our 30,000 or whatever we spent for that. That would be pretty much the same way in this case. If we tore that building down, after we get our money back from the property owners, we would have to put a lien on it. Now, there may be another option, and that option would be if we can get the property owner, and we tried this on Hampton Street, he looked pretty good. If we can get this particular property owner, this would give us the property. Then we paying 30,000 for the whiskey on that property. Would y'all be interested in going in that direction?
I mean, is that 30,000 budgeted?
No. Not at all.
Maybe next year's budget, we ought to.
And then we, I guess what I could do is also ask if they would be interested in doing it that way. From as far as.
Glenn, why are you doing it? Since the last meeting, I guess something they saw the meeting, the old Cooper's Funeral Home in front of the Methodist Church.
That's the brick building there.
Yeah. That's the eyesore.
That one, it was an old funeral. We talked about that one time. Isn't there some other issues there?
Yes, sir. It's got a lot of issues there. Yeah.
We'll see what we can find out. What that, do we know who owns that one right now?
I want to say Alan Watts bought that property.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll put that on there and see what. That's one directly across from the church.
Yes.
The question I have is that if we tear them down, and they're not gonna do anything with it, we can't do anything with it. I mean, all we do is do the cut or what?
Pretty much.
Aesthetically, can we keep it?
Well, I mean, the only thing we would do is keep it cut, if they didn't keep it cut.
Yeah.
If they continue to own the property. If we got it, then.
Is there any long game in the way we could take that property or?
Well, the only other way would be eminent domain, which is, a straight out type deal. And we've done eminent domain years ago when we did the spray field. But, at that point in time, and I wish Jack was here to answer this, but if memory serves me correctly, you just don't get the property. You have to pay fair market value, whatever a judge decides that is. Well, this would be prior to tearing down. And then if we got the property, got the property through eminent domain, grants don't pay for things that you got through eminent domain to improve. So you still have costs.
Do we have any control over safety concerns that arises, like that wall getting ready to fall on one side of it?
No,
We don't.
I don't, again, I'm not a lawyer, I wouldn't think so because it's condemned. I think it would fall back onto the property owner, but then again, I'm not a lawyer, so. Still not sure. Benny, do you know anything?
No, sir.
But that would be what the cost would be to tear that, that's a quote we bid it out, that is the quote of $30,000, actually $30,487.
So what are you suggesting, Dr. Walsh? We address it next year before the budget?
Well, I'm just concerned about, $30,000.
Well, if we can get, and I have to make sure I have to go back and check my notes. If we can get the property either given to us, deeded over before anything is done, there's a possibility that we could get a CDBG grant to do it. But once we did that, we can't sell the property. The property would still have to be ours. And then if we did sell the property, we would have to give back what we got from CDBG to tear it down. So I mean, And what would you do with that little space of property we own it, other than make it green space? You might make a parking lot, and they may have Jason and them here, and their presentation may have some of that information in their presentation, I'm not sure, but.
What leverage do we have under condemning the property?
Well, it's condemned, man. It's condemned.
What are the steps in condemnation?
Benny, can you answer that?
Yes, sir. Normally what we do is send out a certified letter. Once the owner of the property signs for the certified letter, it's 60 days from the date that he signs for it. If we send a certified letter and the property owner refuses to sign for it, it's 60 days after we get the original certified letter back. Then what we'll do at that point, after 60 days, we will submit a list to Jack McKinnis, our attorney. He would draw up some legality, some words, some legal documents so that we can advertise in the local Dillon newspaper. We will have to advertise at least 3 weeks, and the reason being, if anybody else has financial interest in the property, they can come forward and make their appeal, that kind of stuff. But if we don't get any kind of appeal after those 3 weeks notifications, then what we'll do is we have to follow the DHEC rule of 1 house per block per year. And then, of course, we'll turn it over to Burke's department, and then Burke will demolish the structure.
And that's residential.
Correct. That's correct.
Commercial, we don't tear any commercial down, so you don't follow the one building per block on a commercial building. Because those folks have been certified to tear down because they have asbestos and things of that nature, whether or not.
Well, being that it's condemned, have we already used all the steps in the process?
For the Ulysses Madison's building?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And we've never, that I can remember, had anybody, once Jack sends out letters wherever he can find to send them to, and advertising the Dillon Herald, we've never had anybody to throw up their hands and say, don't do it, any part of it. Because most of them are usually in this state.
What are the fines on the books right now, Benny? As it stands right now, where are we with the fines on that property?
For condemned properties,
Yeah.
once we condemn them, we can't fine them. We have to follow our city
But
ordinance.
beforehand, you had fines on that property.
No,
Is there anything sitting on the books as far as a fine?
no, so not for condemnations. Normally what we have for fines are in the historical district, buildings that actually the property owners do not, restore it back to its original appearance. Those are the ones that only have fines.
How does eminent domain work with condemnation of the property? Is there any connection between one and the other?
I don't know. I've never done eminent domain.
That's something we really need to look at.
That would be something.
I think we're gonna have this problem a lot.
Oh, yeah. And then I don't know if Jack handled them when he did the eminent domain, in Springfield, when he built the early 90s. I do know that the fair market value was in play, but as far as actually the process, I've never done anything about those.
All the properties that work in going down along with other folks, and the grass get cut on all year. Do all that money, do that money be on the tax for the,
We bill them, they bill them, Benny gets a list of Burke has it cut, and it's cut, it's sent back to Benny, to let them be done. Benny assigns the cost, anywhere from $75 to $150.
Yes, sir.
That's correct. And then he's turned that over to Janet's office, and Janet then bill the folks, and in a certain period of time, if they don't pay you, you put it on a lien on there.
We're fixing to put some on there for this year. We put them on there last year. So the ones that we billed out since August of last year, if they hadn't paid, we're gonna put those on this year. We have to wait until the taxes are being prepared to put them on.
so if they were cut all last year, the bill will come out this year?
It'll go on, if they hadn't paid a year ago today, we'll just use today as an example. If they hadn't paid, it will go on to taxes. as a lien. And it doesn't mean that, the only time we could get our money is if that property is sold. They can still pay the property tax.
No,
No,
no.
they can't?
No, they have to pay the lot owing or demo that's on there in order, they can't pay one or the other.
Okay, all right.
Got to pay it. So we have been collected some of our lot owing through that.
And then if they don't pay it, the county within a year after that
And so,
can put it up for sale, tax sale, and then whoever buys it has to pay that lien as well. So that's the way that works. Lastly, that I have, last month, there was discussion about procurement. I put in your packet, policy that comes out of our code book on procurement. Talk about purchasing, contract procedures, being competitive, and bid deposits, sealed bids, things of that nature. I put that in there for your review if you had any questions, or just say you didn't have it. That's all I have at this point.
All right. Janet, finance.
general fund, our cash accounts, operating accounts is $1,470,442. We have in the depreciation account for general fund, $786,835, bringing a total to all accounts $2,257,277. In July of this year, we brought in more revenues in 2019 than we did in 2020 by $95,331. Some of that is doing, has to do with the water and sewer billing. We were down on that. I'm sorry, everything. Okay. What we did is we paid, I'd have to go back and see why we were down on that. I think I know what it was. It was the local option money that we got last year and we didn't get it this year.
We're gonna get it.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
It's just the timing, it's the timing of it. I'm sorry, I was thinking about water and sewer.
That's all right.
Okay,
I asked you about that earlier.
you did, and I had that on my mind. On our expenditures, we spent $396,759 more in 2019 than we have in 2020, this time last year. Some of it is due to the bills coming in at a different time. We purchased the garbage truck.
Last year.
We paid the street and alley paving of $35,000. So it's a combination of a lot of different things on that. Also, I'd like y'all to know, when we have purchase orders sitting out there, when I run your report and the purchase orders have not been liquidated, it's an encumbrance sitting there because the reason I don't include it because it will show an expense that you really haven't had. A purchase order is, we're going to order it or we may not. It hadn't been spent yet. So you may see some negative numbers in there.
And that's due to, you said liquidation.
Right.
Even though we've already purchased it.
There was
we haven't
some,
paid them.
that's right.
How
But
many
that's been,
outstanding POs do you have?
pardon?
How many outstanding POs do you
That right
have?
with it. I didn't bring that with me to tell you the total, but, we have some, but I've taken care of the ones liquidated for July.
Is there any way that we could get the outstanding POs just for capital purchases? So the council could be aware of those?
Sure, I'll be glad to do a new report. Okay. It's going to stormwater. Our stormwater cash account's $163,657. Our revenues, $11,849 in 2020. 2019, it was $11,590. Our expenses, $9,733 in July of 2019, it was $2,519. That's due to, we did not hire our employees until January this year. Water source sales and funds, we have our non-restricted accounts, we've got $1,598,887. In our restricted account, we got $1,974,682. Total of both restricted and non-restricted is $3,573,569. And this is where I brought it in. We have brought in, our revenues was $322,077 in July of 20. July of 2019 was $401,210, $79,133 more in 2019 than we did in 20. Some of that was due to the billing. We had less consumption for the billing of this year than we did last year.
Now, when it was mid-July that they cranked back up. Did we see that kind of deficit in June? I don't remember that.
Who cranked that?
Purdue.
I think they were
Purdue
down.
cut out
Well,
Fridays.
they said they're gone, I didn't know.
They're back working
5
Fridays.
days.
Yeah, they're working, they're 5 days now. Be good, nobody knows, Hardy's not here to know.
I don't think that we saw a big difference, if I remember correctly.
That's a big difference.
And it's not only that, it's some other things on there that we have. And then our expenses.
20% of our budget,
Yeah.
20%
If
back.
you look at, hold on one second, if you look at water and sewer sales, for the month of July, we did 295,000, which was 8% of our budget, which,
That's roughly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 9%, yeah, that's correct.
Some of that's.
How much of the backlog, we gave, for the water cutoffs?
we're cutting off now. In fact, we cut off, I don't know how many we cut off, but people are paid. Now, did we put the penalties on this one?
No, that was.
Okay. We're not charging any penalties right now. Right now, we're planning to start in September. On those deals, there'll be penalties added on the, I think we had 160, give or take, scheduled to be cut off today. How many we cut off? I don't know. How many came in and paid?
We have a lot to communicate.
And with that, and I meant to add this in my comments with that, hopefully by the middle of next week, week after next, no later than the end of the month, we talked back in March and April doing online payments. That should be in place here before September.
We'll do it August the 26th.
August 26th.
And you bought a truck, and that's why the expenses were $40,000.
Right, water source. The golf course. Okay, our revenues, and it's not a true picture when you look at it. Our revenues, $23,906 in July of 2019. It was $35,024, but of that $35,024, $15,000 was transferred in there. So if you took that
But
out,
also, mid-July last year, we had no guests. And that is a full golf course for 3 days. And that's gonna happen this weekend. So you may see a good August where you saw, a mediocre July. There's a lot of play out of the golf course, a lot of people that I've never seen play. They're out there playing.
okay, and then the expenditures, we spent $22,858 more in this year than we did last July. And that was due to, we had to have a new pump put out there, which was $17,923.
What's the pump for?
It's something.
Irrigation.
Okay. On the 2% hospitality tax, we brought in $2,660 more in revenue since July than we did last July. And we got 5 payments left on that. We got a total of $936,950 in the account.
Is that all?
That's it.
All right, thank you, Karen.
I got a question right there, before we get further. What was the capital expenses in the VA check?
Did you buy anything, the DEA one, the range shooting one? That he,
I'll have to go in there, $7,561. I'll go and get it. And the reason I put it under capital expenditures is because anything over 5,000, we put it in there to capitalize it as
you
a.
lose me, Bob.
Yeah. I'll let you know.
Good. All right, benchmark planning, Jason Epley.
Before Jason started, you guys remember we met Jason and Dan back in November, December?
Something like that, a while ago.
We had gotten a grant through the Municipal Association, $25,000 to do a study downtown as far as master plans. And when we selected these folks to do it, they gave us time to frame it about 9 months, I believe. Yeah, y'all were gonna meet with staff, and you met with council, you met with some of the property business owners and public in general. So they're here tonight to kind of give you what they heard from all these folks and some recommendations. This is not the final product by no means. This is just to give you where they are at this time.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Once again, Jason Epley, with me tonight is Dan Douglas. Dan and I have been engaged working on this project for some time now. We had a little bit of gap, because of all the different things going on with COVID and some reorganization with some of the downtown committees. And so we're happy tonight to be able to come to you and share a little bit about what we've been doing. And once again, these are draft recommendations and ideas. And if you look at the phasing here, as Glenn had mentioned, we're at phase 2 tonight, which is to present some of the draft ideas and the vision. And then after tonight, after we receive your feedback, we'll then go back, work on some detailed recommendations, meet again with the committee. We talked to them about doing some virtual meetings, perhaps, to go a little bit deeper in some implementation recommendations. But tonight, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of some of the things we've been doing, and then Dan is going to hit some of the major recommendations that we'd like to get your feedback on. Just to kind of go over what Glenn was saying, we did hold some listening sessions. Our typical process, we like to get some information and data, but we also like to talk to people. You live here, you do business here, we want to find out what's going on, so we did that. We had about 60 participants back in, really towards the end of January, 1st of February. We had a little downtown workshop here at the Wellness Center. Didn't have a whole lot of folks come to that, but we did have a decent turnout. Some of the data we've been looking at, as you all are very familiar with, your population growth has been relatively flat. But we're hopeful with things we're seeing with the inland port that maybe there's going to be some changes. We don't know what the 2020 census holds. When we started this project, we were looking at the 2017 data, but I have done some quick checkups on the 2018, and it's about the same. So we're still kind of staying on the same track, but we're hoping that there's going to be some potential for growth. And as you look at that figure, the daily population expands to approximately 18,000 people, because you're at a county center. So there's a lot of people here during the day. I had briefly mentioned the mega site inland port. Greer is a great example of the potential. You are in a different place, different position in the state, but I think it's something to be thinking about. How can you fully maximize your opportunities related to the mega site and the inland port? Because there certainly is a lot of potential. Dan might hit on some of those here in a minute. We did look at the downtown retail trade potential. One of the difficult things with looking at that, your trade area does overlap with Walmart and a lot of other major kind of retailers, so it skews the data a little bit. But the data did present that there are some opportunities with specialty food services and things that you would see like in the downtown. So we feel that although it's skewed a little somewhat, by your larger retailers, we still feel that data did reveal there is some market potential for certain retail business categories. Our focus area, as you know, is this 14-block area running along West Main and East Main. We did look around the fringes, but this was our focus area. Some of the things we looked at included land use, traffic counts, we looked at property values, existing structures, parking, you name it. We really covered a lot of information that was presented in detail back in February at the workshop. We also took a look at parks and open space, vacant properties that were for sale, and then also, we are aware of the flooding from Hurricane Matthew and the efforts going on to alleviate those problems in the future. One thing we're surprised to see was the ridership at the Amtrak station. Well over 5,000 people in 2019. I have not seen an updated figure for that yet for this year. Downtown events. We heard a lot about the downtown events you have and how popular those are with people that live here in Dillon and the county. And then also, there's things that draw people in from outside of town to some of these bigger events. The Battle of the Bands, for example. And we also were encouraged to see all the good work that's been done. A lot of interest in facade grants. I think there's opportunity to leverage those grants to maybe get a little bit better result with some of the grants and building improvements. But certainly it's positive to see that people believe in downtown and are making an effort to make improvements as they move ahead. So positive indicators. Dan and I both see this as a huge opportunity. There's not a lot of towns that are your size that have this kind of potential sitting right here in your community. The vehicular traffic, I think I had mentioned that before, your traffic counts are really good. A lot of towns, once again, this size, you don't see that much traffic on the main street. It's usually diverted to somewhere else. Your post office, the government offices, the banks, the hospital, all those things being here in downtown really make a difference. And then also new development activity in downtown. We had mentioned the facade grants, and we know there's a lot of businesses and restaurants that are trying to open, get all that going, and a lot of renovations underway. And we're also encouraged by the development of the junior high school that's going to have opportunity to have a community seating for, I believe, 600 people in that auditorium. Does that sound? I think that was the number. So we see a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of positive indicators. So what did we learn during the listening sessions? What did people tell us that live here, business owners, community supporters, volunteer members, elected officials? What were some of the things that we heard? We strongly communicated that you'd like to see your small town atmosphere maintained and keep that going. Downtown restaurants and evening entertainment. That was something we heard time and time again when we were talking with folks. A place for the public to gather. For special events and outdoor concerts. It seemed to be a general desire to have more events downtown. And I think we should definitely mention the desire to have family-oriented, safe type events. A lot of these things, have been complicated this year with COVID, but these are the kind of things that bring people together in your community, in downtown, opportunities for all ages. Bring this as an example from Spartanburg. Many of you may have been to Freight Yard. This is an example of that kind of gathering spot where the community can come together, have some outdoor events. I believe that's the Clemson football game on that screen up there, which is always good. Some other things we heard, how do you create and attract more business downtown? Where can you get more green space, pocket parks? Take advantage of all of these passengers that use the rail station. How can you look at opportunities to leverage from that? Building codes, design guidelines for facilitating development. How do you improve your building size? The technical community college, how can we get the technical community college more involved in downtown? And then we are aware that you have made some steps recently with improving, at least taking the steps to get alcohol, which will help with some of these restaurant, higher end type things that we kept hearing from time and time again. Just a quick example of the building renovation. This was a project we did in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina, not South Carolina. This was the rendering to give some inspiration and some vision to the property owner. And this building had a ribbon cutting in 2019. And you can see the improvements the business owner made to the building. Some of the ideas that also came out of the listening sessions were makerspace. Some of you may or may not be familiar with that. That could be a variety of things where there are tools and technology and things available to the community, whether it's membership-based or some other nonprofit that may run it, where you can come in and build things. You see here in the bottom right-hand corner, and up at the top you see a commercial kitchen that can be rented out by someone in the community that maybe doesn't have the ability to get the licensing to make their cookies in their home kitchen and pass all the DHEC tests so they can sell them. You could have a commercial kitchen that could be rented and leased by people that have a recipe that want to do something commercial, but they just don't have the ability to get a business going out the gate. Some of those other things we heard were co-working space, performing arts. We know you have some of that, but there seems to be a desire to have more activities and programming, attracting young people. We did get to talk to some folks. It's not all the time we have the opportunity to talk to people that are in their late teens and early 20s, but we did have that opportunity during the listening sessions, and we heard about open mic nights, and well, I go to Florence, and I go here or go there. I'd like to stay here in Dillon and have that opportunity. Building the creative economy, Dan's going to talk about that, the importance of having creative infrastructure. A lot of times in economic development, you build roads, you put in sewer pipes, well, there's things that you can put into place to encourage the creative economy. And how can Dillon become a destination? I think that's one of the biggest questions to try to answer through this process. And, how do we attract people here? How do you take advantage of the inland port and all the opportunities to move forward? And here's just some other examples of some of the things that we had talked about on the previous slide. So, we'll turn it over to Dan. I just want to emphasize, these are some big picture things. We will have lots of recommendations that we'll share with you all when the process is complete. But we want to kind of go over some of the bigger ones tonight and get your feedback as we're moving ahead.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so I just want to reiterate, these are sort of the big moves. There will be a lot more smaller things and recommendations in the full plan, but given the time constraints, we wanted to focus on what we thought were the big things. And I want to reiterate, we do a lot of work in small towns in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. That's kind of the market we work in, and they would kill to have an inland port. Most towns we work in would literally kill to get one. They would kill to have 9,000 cars a day on their main street. They would kill to have people that show up in meetings and are interested in forming groups to help support downtown. I mean, a lot of times our first recommendation is you got to have some group, somebody has to take responsibility. And here you have community members that stood up and sort of are in the process, at least, of taking it on, without really being asked. And so those are really positive things. And we think over time, granted the economy is not great right now, but at some point, some big fish is going to take a look at that inland port, bigger than the one you have now, whether it's a car manufacturer or some big thing, and that is going to be a game changer. And when those companies come, when they think about coming, I used to run economic development for downtown Raleigh, and no matter where the business was located in Raleigh, they always wanted to see what's your downtown like, and what they're really asking is, I want to know, do my people want to live here? Will they be comfortable living here? Will they be proud to live here? Is there enough amenities and things going on that they'll feel comfortable and enjoy, when and if we make the move to Dillon, will they be happy once we do? And one of the questions I ask a lot in listening sessions is, where do you go on a first date? Right? And that's a sneaky way of trying to find out if there's a nightlife, if there's things going on in your town, especially that young people will want to do. And overwhelmingly, the answer was Florence, we go for our first date. And so that tells us that there's not a lot of activity that at least younger couples would find interesting enough to ask someone, that you're interested in enjoying with you. And so that starts to point out some issues for us. And some of these recommendations are going to cover that. Please. So we kind of broke this Main Street from 6 to the tracks in the west, and we kind of see it as kind of 3 districts, right? So you have what we're calling the government center on the west with the county, the city, the post office, and maybe that's a pretty big anchor. that delivers some of those 18,000 people a day that are in Dillon during the day. And we think there's an opportunity to strengthen it and maybe even expand it. And in the middle, this deals more with that first state stuff. You know, this is an opportunity. We see a lot of new investment. There's 3 buildings underway here. Talking about some buildings on the corner here. There's one missing a roof. We met with a contractor that claims that there's some interest in doing something there. And so in that block there seems to be more activity than a lot of the other blocks downtown. You have the existing railroad park here and the train station and the theater. So there's lots of opportunity and proximity to each other there. So we're calling it the sort of festival marketplace. Excuse me.
You know, the police station is going to be across the street from that also.
Maybe. We're making a recommendation about that.
All right.
And so on Highway 501, you're somewhere between 9,000 and 12,000 cars a day. But the gateway here at the intersection with Main, it could be a lot better, right? So if someone's taking let's say 95 is jammed up and it's Saturday and they're heading to the beach and they get off, Google Maps or whoever tells them to go down 301, 501, you want to invite them to explore the rest of your downtown right here and go either left or right and get off on Main Street, have a bite to eat, do something. And I got to admit, when I came the first time, I drove right through that. I didn't know, I wasn't using Google Maps and directions, so I didn't know that was Main Street. So we'll make some recommendations about that. And then a streetscape recommendation for the entire length of, we heard a lot from people that the streetscape was done, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years ago. People are not real happy with the sort of plantings on the corners, hard to see when you're driving, and some of the trees are not as stately or as nice as people would hope they are. So we have some recommendations about that. The first one is this new streetscape design. The downtowns that succeed nowadays are the ones that are a nice pedestrian environment, where you feel comfortable walking, window shopping, sitting in an outdoor cafe, that have shade, that have interesting things to look at, not a lot of vacant buildings, and that is kind of not the case in downtown Dillon today. So we think it's time for a new upgraded streetscape that makes pedestrian improvements like bulb out, shade trees, wider sidewalk. A lot of times in the small communities we work in, people drive down Main Street, and if they don't see anybody, they don't see anything happen, and they think, oh, it's dead, nothing's going on. And so things like sidewalk sales, outdoor cafes, anything that could spill out onto the sidewalk and show life really changes people's perception about what downtown is. Events, things like that. So we want to try to create an outdoor dining experience to add life to the street. We want to strategically plant shade trees, not just a lot of landscape architects say, oh, we should, every 40 feet, as if this is like an access road to an industrial plant or something. The way you want to plant street trees on a main street is at the property lines to frame the signage of the building and make the building stand out and come forward. And so we have some recommendations about that. And we think with about, I think it was about 9,000 cars a day, you do not need a 4-lane Main Street. That is like sending a big signal to the market that this is a place for cars, not people. The biggest concern we have is moving cars efficiently, and it's 2 lanes at one end of Main Street before you come into town, and it's 2 lanes at the other side coming in, and 4 lanes, you end up giving over 90% of the right-of-way to the movement and storage of cars, and that sends a big signal to people mentally that this is a place for cars, not people. And you're never going to compete with Walmart, on the amount of free parking and ease of access, It's just, if you think that people come downtown because the parking's free or super easy to drive on 4 lanes, that's not why they come. They come for the experience of downtown. And so that's what we're trying to improve here. And if we do that, we can actually increase parking from 117 spaces to 223 spaces. We'll show you how that's done. This is sort of an example of a small town outdoor cafe, the type of experience that a lot of people go on vacation for. Right? We think, let's go to Charleston, it's so nice, or let's go to, Greenville up near the mountains, or Asheville. You know, there's no reason we can't live, that all of us can't live in communities that have this type of experience, and we shouldn't have to travel to get it. This is kind of a pedestrian bulb out here on the corner that makes it easier to cross. And this is the existing streetscape. So from here all the way to there is devoted to cars. The fast movement and storage of vehicles. And that little 12 foot and that little 10 foot on the side is where you say that's where a pedestrian should be. That's what people on foot get. And you don't have a whole lot of drive-throughs on Main Street that I saw. Of course, they're out on 301. But that means I got to get this through that front door. There's only one way to do it, and that's on foot. I can't drive into your store. I got to walk in. So making it a great place for pedestrians is step one. 60-degree angle parking is really unusual on a Main Street. That's a pretty severe angle that folks aren't really used to parking. You see a lot of 30s and 45s, but not the big 60. That's a severe angle. It's tough for some people to understand. And there's a variety, kind of mismatch of landscaping in different ways that it's maintained or not maintained. So we think it's probably time to look at an update. That's again the dimensions. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of 8, you know, 6 of 8 12-foot groups are devoted to cars and only 2 to people. There it is. Next. So this is kind of the new idea of the streetscape. I'll let you take a look at it. This is again 6, so it goes from there all the way through. And we're not a firm that recommends fancy pavers that are hard to maintain and hard for maintenance guys and gals to deal with. We like to see a 2-foot by 2-foot concrete grid so that if you have to cut out for a new sewer line or a new water line, it's real easy for your guys to maintain it and replace it. It's much cheaper, and frankly, nobody really cares about what the sidewalk looks like. They just want it to be flat and level and not be tripped up. Okay. So this is what we're proposing for most of the streetscape, except for one block. 3 11.5-foot travel lanes with a center left turn lane, 18 feet 6 for 45-degree angle parking, not 60, and 14-foot wide sidewalks, which is kind of the minimum to do an outdoor cafe where you have seating at the building edge and at the curb, like this. So you have seating here, up against the building, and then another table out here. People actually walk through the middle of the cafe. And the reason you do that is because, you know, when people make a big fenced-in cafe, it moves their wallet and their eyes away from window shopping. So the closer you can keep them to the front of the building, like when you're in a mall, you know, the sausage cart and the pretzel cart and whatever, it's always in the middle of the mall. It's never up against the front of the building because they don't want to put anything between you and that store. So you can look in and shop, and that's what we're trying to do here. I mentioned strategic planting of trees only at the property lines and not everywhere. You know, spread it out a little bit, but shade is really important. And then high visibility crosswalks and bump outs. So this crossing here is about 35 feet instead of from here to here, which would be closer to 60 feet. So that makes that crossing a lot safer. Next, so this is what it looks like in plan. Now it's 45-degree space as a center turn lane and 1 travel lane in each direction. And here you see the trees, every other building, you know, at the property line, so the signage of this building is not blocked by a big tree. And in the Festival Block site, it's a little bit different because there's not a whole lot of demand, we think, for left-hand turn lanes on the Railroad Avenue. So we took out the left-hand turn lane, and that gives us a 17-foot wide sidewalk. There you can see the type of cafe I'm talking about, where you have tables out at the curb and then another one against the building and people walk right through the middle. That's the preferred cafe experience. 17-foot wide sidewalks, strategic planning again, high visibility crosswalks, and here you don't really need the left turn lanes because there is no big demand. And this is where we think a lot of the outdoor cafes have the best chance. These 2 buildings, the bank building, and then these 3 that are already planned for a cafe. Next. So this is a look at the West Main Government Center side. We add a bunch of parking on the north side here in front of the grocery store. Regularize the parking here in front of City Hall and the county court building. And this is the east end with the gateway. We bump out wherever the curb cuts are to get people into parking, and try to do the same at all the intersections in here. You have a lot of demand, so we put 3 turn lanes. So there's 4 lanes at the intersection with 501, so you can do a left and right or straight. Here's the gateway concept. You can't really neck down 501, that's a big issue, but we try to do it north-south where we can. Again, we kept the 3 lanes, but they might be a little bit smaller, maybe 11 feet. And then these red squares, I don't know what it is, right? But you need to do something there that tells people, hey, you're crossing Main Street of a really neat community, maybe you should check it out, left or right. And so that would be some kind of vertical marker, and to let people know that they're approaching this different thing, 1 block each to the north or south. We think you should make a tree planting scheme that as people are coming down 301 and they get to that one spot where the trees are grown and then they can see the vertical icons, they know that they're in a different area. Next. Here's example in Charlotte, that's Trade and Tryon Street. They have 4 statues of I don't know who. This is the gateway into Rock Hill, South Carolina. They got these columns from the old Masonic Temple in Charlotte and brought them out there on a train. They got them for free. Just put them up. Here's the type of signage, when you get to that intersection and it says, I forget the number of Main Street. Is it 57 or 9? Is Main Street State 34? 34. So instead of just saying 34 and 301, you can say, oh, there's Main Street, there's shops, there's food, there's a farmer's market, and plenty of parking. So you're giving that person a message when they're standing there at that stoplight that, hey, maybe there's something else. And when I got off the highway, coming from the north, I got off at south of the border, and the first time I went right, because there's no sign that says, hey, Dillon is to your left. And so this is all part of you want to make it easy for people to find you, and right now, it's for newcomers anyways, it's kind of difficult. In terms of the facade grant program, we think you need some rough guidelines, maybe a 3 to 5 page document that makes it clear what you want from people when you're participating in the renovation of the front of their building. It makes it easy to review, a simple checklist that makes it easy for them to do. And sometimes in some cities, you can even have a sort of an architect on call that you limit the amount of money they can charge and it becomes part of the grant. So if someone is not sure how to do a right facade, maybe there's an architect that you say no more than $750, you can come in and guide them through it, and the grant will pay for half of that, just like it would the rest of the physical part of the facade. So you can get advice for people who don't really, they're not construction, they don't know code, they don't know all the rules, and this makes it easier for them. And then we heard from a lot of people that it's tough to get things done in terms of permitting in downtown. And so if you want to do outdoor dining, you have to make it easy to get a permit. It should take them, 8 hours, not 8 weeks. And if you make the investments in streetscape, one of the things we always recommend is a streamlined process for the private sector to respond to that investment. So you can get a better return on your investment by making it easier for people to invest, specifically where you made that big investment. And oftentimes we recommend for clients, let's say you decided to do that streetscape and you budgeted for 2023 or something, and it's going to be done by January of 24, you would increase the size of the facade grant until you have the ribbon cutting for Main Street to try to incent the private businesses to respond to your public investment. So when you open the street, there's new facades, there's new street, there's new trees, and it's all done at once. When I did that in Raleigh in downtown, our facade grant matched up $10,000, we upped it to $20,000, and we got 18 applications in a 6-block area that were all done when the new Main Street opened. Here's an example from your town, although we haven't seen it yet because We know it's been redone, but this is before that, so we stopped here first on our way north from the north. But this was an idea we had of what it could look like. And that's again, where you want to put a tree, not blocking the new sign. You want to sort of frame especially the window signs. On Main Street, these signs are more important than anything up high because people and cars are on the ground, so these are the most important. Here's a recommendation we're making for the Dillon County Ag Building. We toured that building. It's in it's in good shape. It's a historic building. It's a very strong and stout, made out of concrete. And so we think you should build off the city-county presence to anchor the west end. And so, and even use the out parcel site in front of the grocery as a potential to recruit some state office. We've had success in other towns recruiting cooperative extension, soil water conservation, state parks. There's usually all those little state offices need some space, so sometimes you get 5,000 to 10,000 square foot of office leased out to the state. And in the ag building, we think that the police department should move there and not in the bank building to keep it close to the courthouse and close to the city hall, and that the county office building, it's an idea, that the county office building is in that old house, maybe together they could share that building, open up needed space in City Hall and give the county the county office building a presence on Main Street again. The building is about 12,000 square feet. Maybe the county occupies the front, the police the back, or maybe split it by 4. I'm not sure. But we think there's ample opportunity in there to satisfy what at least Glenn told us was the space needs of the police moving forward and of the county moving forward, and still have about 3,000 square feet left over to grow into over time. You could have meeting space there, and some potential parking at the site of the old county building. And that opens up the 100-block bank building for a really highly visible use, because that, as you come across the tracks, that's probably like a billboard. It's one of the most visible buildings in Main Street because there's nothing in front of it. So you're looking at it as you come up west, and we think maybe there's a better use there. So we have an idea. We'll see. Next. So that would be the ag building here. It's got a nice courtyard, and if the county moves in, then they can have parking to serve their users here on their own site. Post office there, and then this was the site I was talking about as a potential. Because then you'd have a little mini version of kind of what they have in Charleston. They call it the 4 corners of law or whatever. It's the state, the Fed, the county, and the church, I think, is all on one intersection. So this could kind of be a government center with the feds, the state, the city, the county, and the county again. That's a big anchor with a lot of employees. Jason didn't get to it this time, but in the final report, this is the before. There'll be an after that shows a little bit of what that building might look like if it becomes a government building. You could have the county entrance here and the police entrance here, so there's a presence on Main Street. This is the Festival Marketplace concept. And so these are the buildings I mentioned that people have told us in the listening sections were ripe for reinvestment. This was the one that you all, I think, are trading with the bank for some parking. And so you have, like I mentioned, some real anchors here. The Depot, the Dillon Theater. We saw a proposal for a new farmer's market that was in the middle of the block. You have the Railroad Park with the wider sidewalk here because it's only 2 lanes, a real chance for outdoor dining. And so the idea is, how do you make this a destination and get more people to come? And that's mostly by planning events and things that people want to come to. Hopefully you get the 5,000 people at the Depot to come over here and get a coffee. You start showing activity at the movie theater, and they walk down to the restaurant. The market can go on and draw people, and then you get this, by shifting it, you get a big lawn that can host events and concerts and movies in the square. And all that maybe leverages some development on the grass here that is an opportunity site. A little more detail. This is it, kind of looking from above the train depot towards Main. And on the far end there is the farmer's market building with the lawn, the bank building, and then you get with stained concrete, maybe put your city logo in the middle there to sort of make it a little bit more festive. And with the wider sidewalks, you get all this outdoor dining on the corner. So as people are coming, the first thing they see of downtown Dillon is life and activity and people out doing stuff. next one. Here's the most active we've seen it, was during one of your downtown events. Similar view. So, I know you're thinking, well, maybe the farmer's market goes once a month, maybe at the most once a week on Saturday. What are we going to do with that building the other, 320 days a year? And so we see lots of these buildings used as a monthly vintage market, flea market, an annual Christmas market. This is where people sell Christmas ornaments and supplies, a live music hall. It's a community rental venue for weddings and other events. Here's one kind of live music. And then the Great Lawn becomes this, the Marketplace Music Lawn, where you can hold events. We think it will hold about 2,000 people sitting. And so if you do 7 or 8 of those a year, then all of a sudden, all those properties around it now have people that are downtown willing to spend money. They have a stronger market. This is the bank building today. And we're recommending, at least looking at making it a small business development center. As Jason mentioned, running a pipe out to the inland port is a piece of infrastructure that's, for the big whale, right? The whole thing of the inland port is we're trying to catch a whale. That's our hook into water for the big, huge thing. But 2/3 of the jobs in South Carolina are not created by whales. They're created by small businesses. And small businesses that are started by members of this community. And so what is the infrastructure you have? What is the pipe? What is the road? What is the sewer line or the giant power line that you as a community have put together to help grow small businesses? And this strategy, you sort of have the whale hunters. This is called economic gardening. It's where you try to help a small business grow from an idea into a physical space and then into their own space eventually over time through mentoring, through sharing of overhead, through partnering with other people within the small business space for other suppliers and working together. So if I'm in a co-working space and we're trying to put together the report for you guys, maybe we ask the graphic designer that's 3 seats over to help us put it together, and all of a sudden we're working together and all the money is being shared and recircled in our economy, recirculated. So the idea is the market hall and the small business center are infrastructure. The market hall provides a place to test ideas. We worked with a young man in Suffolk that was making chocolate dipped strawberries and selling them in cute little boxes around the community, but he didn't have a place. He didn't have a place where he could introduce that idea to the whole community, and that's what a farmer's market can do. Because you can rent a booth for 10 or 15 bucks and try an idea with just spending the 10 or 15 bucks and what it costs you to build your product for today. And if chocolate-covered strawberries become the thing, then you can move up to the ground floor of the Small Business Development Center and have a little shop for about a year. You time limit it. And when he moves up there, maybe he gets some help from the community college. Maybe he gets a mentor from a retired retailer or a retired food prep expert that is in town that helps to shepherd him and understand how to make a product and how to move it. And then, if he's still successful, the idea is that he would move on to the Small Business Center and take a shop in Main Street or some other part of the community. So you've taken this little kernel of an idea and you've given it a piece of infrastructure that lets it grow to where it can actually take over some space in your community. And the reason they call it gardening is because it's planting a seed and watching it grow. But the other thing is it's sticky, right? So if you help somebody develop their business over the course of maybe 5 years, guess what? They're never moving from Dillon, right? They're sticky. They want to stay here because you've helped them. They feel loyal to you. When you recruit a whale, the next town over could offer $30 million more incentive the next year. And guess what? They're moving to the new incentive. And so they're not as sticky. And so this is a way of sort of growing and creating a whole bunch of small businesses that are about 60% of the jobs in South Carolina and making them stay here. And providing unique amenities that make people from the Wales want to live here because they can go get a chocolate-covered strawberry shop or a bakery or somebody. We had a young couple in Raleigh that decided he wanted to make his own pair of jeans. He was a senior in college. And so he got a pattern and he sewed a pair and he realized he didn't know what he was doing, that he needed a special sewing machine. And as you know, the Carolinas are textile, it's our history, it's textile, a lot of it. And so he went out and bought the old sewing machines. He found the denim manufacturers in Greensboro. He found a lady who was 85 who knows how to make a pattern for blue jeans, who had retired years before. He brought all that together and made a company called Raleigh Denim that manufactures jeans in the heart of downtown Raleigh and sells them at Barney's for $500 a pair. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about economic gardening. And he was nobody. He was nobody. He was just a grad student, not even from North Carolina, at NC State. And because they found him a mentor, they found him a space, they helped connect him to the sewing machine guy, they helped connect him to the denim manufacturer. The city of Durham offered the Raleigh Jean Company $100,000 to move to Durham, to bring some cool to Durham. And the guy said, well, look what's in my name. We're the Raleigh Jean Company, not the Durham Jean Company, and these people have helped us all these years. We're never moving. And that's what I mean by sticky. These are some examples of shared retail space. Typically, you want little small 1,000 square foot with hallways where it's cheap to rent and a nice space. And this could be the ground floor of the small business development center. And up above could be co-working, mentoring, maybe some classroom space from the community college where people know if I have an idea I'm going to develop, this is the place to come. Thanks. So what are some potential funding options available for this? You have a whole bunch of new and existing venues. So you have the Dillon Theater, you have the new theater coming in the senior center. You have now that if you built this, you have the covered market site, and next to it the Great Lawn. And so now you're set up to do bigger events. You could hold a blues festival or I don't know, whatever music people really like, because now you have 3 covered venues and a big lawn. And if that brings in 10,000 people from the PD region on a weekend, all the retailers, all the restaurateurs, your accommodation tax money, all that stuff goes up. And the same is true with sporting events, right? Softball tournaments, basketball tournaments. These are things that we see. I work also in tourism. So youth sports, live music events, and now microbrewery festivals where you can sample 100 different kinds of beer. Those are the 3 big drivers of small town tourism today. You turn day trips into overnight trips, that boosts up your accommodation tax revenue, and you can use that money to invest in these venues that are drawing people in. We mentioned most of this stuff on the gateway. It's just create a stronger impression, clean up, reorganize the signage, communicate to travelers what's ahead for them, and then create a 1-block buffer to let them know that opportunity is coming, and then make it better for pedestrians. And here's some examples from some other towns. A funky piece of art, and you don't have to like this, right, or that. A lot of communities fight over public art because they think it's permanent. So what we recommend is just keep a pedestal, and you can lease the art from somebody for a year at a time and then change it out. You don't have to buy it. That's tough on a budget for a small town. So a lot of times artists will even donate it just to get the visibility for a year. And so that's what these are. I'm not the guy that's going to tell you what that should be. I don't know what this community's image of itself is, but it should be something that drives people's interest. And lastly, some supporting initiatives. As I mentioned, you need a citywide wayfinding system that directs people to downtown and your major destinations. Could be along the new Martin Luther King Gateway from Radford Boulevard. You should keep working on the drainage improvements to alleviate the potential for flooding, even though we all hope that was a 500-year event. Since it's fresh in people's minds, they're hesitant to invest, thinking that could be in my future, given how many hurricanes we seem to be getting lately. Make pedestrian connectivity with your pedestrian plan. Continue to make those connections to adjacent neighborhoods, because downtown is their neighborhood where they shop and get all their stuff. And this is a big one, especially if you want fine dining. Hopefully the campaign in November will approve Sunday alcohol sales, because the margin on alcohol is much greater than the margin on food. And if you want fine dining, you need to have Sunday alcohol sales. And it could carve you out a special niche, because I don't think anyone else in the county has it, right? And so you can become sort of the destination for Mother's Day for sure on Sundays. Be the only place where people can come, but but lots of other opportunities to sort of carve out a niche in the county for people to come here on that first day. When they say, where do you go? You can say, oh, I go to Billy's Restaurant in Dillon, and then we go see a concert on the Great Lawn, and we end up, having a great night when we do that, or a movie, or whatever it is. And so when people ask, when you ask people, what do you do on that first date? If that isn't the answer, if the answer is we're going to Florence, then your downtown is sort of failed. And that's, this is a typical wayfinding system. You have your welcome signs, your direction signs, and then once you get in downtown, you have sort of pedestrian scale signs that direct you to individual destinations. And then it's important that people know where free public parking is so they don't get their car towed. Next one. And so those were the 5 big steps. The new streetscape, downtown design, expanding and concentrating your government center, developing the festival marketplace and the pipeline infrastructure for small business, and then enhancing your front door at the gateway. And then we didn't list all of them because we only have a short time here, but in the final report there'll be a whole series of smaller recommendations that didn't make it into this presentation, but are real small things. And that's it, and we'll take any questions if we have them.
Any idea what the roadway infrastructure would cost?
The streetscape?
Yeah.
Jason?
Well, we didn't do that yet because, this is conceptual at this point. We didn't really dive into the numbers. I would probably say $3 million per block.
That's probably highest.
2 blocks if you did something really decorative, something like this, maybe more in the 1.5 per block.
Yeah. I mean, your lights are already underground, right? That's the big expense, so you save that. And so it's really just new sidewalks and trees. And we recommend a 2x2 concrete bridge, cheap, easy, no fancy blue slate or granite or anything like that. So I bet you can do it, near, not too much more than a million block, and I think you have 6 blocks, maybe 7.
But it depends on how much of that you do.
Yeah, you don't have to do it all at once either.
Yeah, but we didn't look at that. So,
We can.
but certainly we can look at that in the final report and get a better idea.
Well, I mean, we all have dreams,
Yeah.
We want something that, we can work towards, and one of the things that many times government doesn't do is a 5-year and 10-year plan, and it's something that we can work towards. We might not be able to do it in a year or 2-year period of time. We might be able to do it in 5 years, but,
And that's kind of how when we were talking about this, is, what would be first, what would be second, second phase, third phase,
Right.
et cetera.
Yeah.
We really focused our attention on this first block that we're showing here in this image, just because we feel like that's the greatest potential for return immediately.
Right.
Certainly, you want to look at the whole entire downtown, but you got to start somewhere.
Right.
We felt like that would be the first place to start. We really wanted to get your feedback before we dug in real deep into details on things like the numbers.
we're gonna need some direction on the bank building, in 18 months, because we've got plans for that building right now.
And we appreciate that. We did not want to step on people's toes, your toes.
Well, no.
Showing us as an option.
We asked for an opinion, but, the ag building, we sold for $52,000,
Yeah.
back gave it away. And, they were supposed to do something with it
Yeah.
in 2 years, and really that never developed. I think the roof on that thing was just horribly expensive. I think he got my broke on that building. It's well built, but there's some architectural challenges, walls and stuff, how you cover wiring and plumbing.
Yeah. The beauty is it's sort of laid out well for offices because that's what it was. And we've been working with Myrtle Beach. And if you were to do that building at one end of the street and the bank building at the other end, you can use tax credits to renovate them. And in South Carolina, I think it's 25% of the cost of the building. And then you syndicate it and sell them, right? So as a city, you can't use tax credits because you don't pay taxes. But you can syndicate those credits and sell them to Bank of America or Wells Fargo or some rich investor that wants to buy those credits from you. So you can get a subsidy to do that from the state government as long as you follow the, and keep it more or less historically intact.
There also, on that, where the bank is, I think there's a building along there that is in poor repair that might give us access back to, if we had a green space, back to the area behind it where the lawn is.
Yeah, I think it's this one, this little one-story one. We
No,
have
I'm talking about on Main Street.
It was on Main, the building
Yeah,
right
one of
beside.
those, yeah.
Yeah, I know people have been talking about that. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. But anytime you give an excuse for someone to not walk in front of a retail shop and take a shortcut like that,
Yeah.
that's a wallet that didn't walk in front of her store, it didn't walk in front of my cafe, and now it's a place you have to maintain and you have to worry about.
Okay.
We prefer for the block to be continuous and let them walk around.
Okay.
Because then they have to walk in front of every shop. Sometimes you have to do it, if the building burns or it's in some kind of terrible shape. But it's really important. And the thing that you have that no one else has is this continuous block of traditional Main Street facades. And almost every town we work in is knocked down 2 or 3 or 4 of them. And that's where people typically turn around. If they're walking down Main Street, and they come to a spot that's a gap and they look down here, should I go the rest of the way? This is a gap. A lot of times that's where they make the decision to turn around and go back to their car. So we call it a gap tooth Main Street, where, it's like a smile missing a couple teeth. And so you try not to pull a tooth unless you have to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And our next time we meet will be, what's our agenda?
Before you think in
October.
Okay.
Yeah, because our plan would be to, meet with the committee, again, because it has been some time.
Get some more feedback.
Get some more feedback. Certainly, if you all have feedback that you'd like to pass along, we want to hear it, to Glenn and get that to us. This was intended to be a draft, so.
And to throw some ideas. So if there's something, if it turns out that you say, we're dead set on the bank building being, the police station, then we certainly don't want to put in our final plan something that we know there's no heart for or no desire from the police or the council to do, and we'll change it. I mean, this is your plan, it's not our plan, and so.
I think it's really interesting, that whole small business gardening idea. I mean, that, for a little bit of nothing, they could try an idea, and like you say, something may come from that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
We better get going while we still have electricity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Stephanie, Dillon Community Alliance, Stephanie Mitchell.
Okay. Y'all should have a packet of things from me. Sorry, I didn't mean to feel free, but gotta do what I gotta do. All of y'all know me. I am Stephanie Mitchell. I am with Dillon Community Alliance at this meeting. I do a lot of stuff. But I want to first pass this around. So y'all know. One, we all have our beliefs. That's our legal entity. That is stating that we are tax exempt and we are recognized by the Secretary of State. I want you to have that first. But one, we all have our beliefs, and there was no better time for me to come before this committee than with this tonight. I believe God put me here for a purpose. That's my belief. So, because a lot of the things that he said, I'm going to be talking about and building off of as well. I'm really nervous, and I believe I never get nervous, so this has got to be a good thing. First up in your packet, let's talk about the things that y'all got. You got a lot of stuff. You got a proposal. Did everybody have a chance to look over this proposal? I will go over, because this is the meat and potatoes basically, and I'll go over this in depth shortly. You got a proposal. You got a copy of a resolution we'll talk about. You got what is currently Dillon's historic map and the facade incentive grant program, the current guidelines that we go by. You got about 6 letters of recommendation from business owners, community members, people within the community. And these, you also got a list of our board members, so you know who we are, and if you have any questions about what stakes some of those people hold, because we're all stakeholders in this community. We have business owners, we have lawyers, we have people with young children that live here and want their kids to grow up in the area. We have someone that has a nationwide business experience. So we have a lot of good qualities on our board of directors, which help direct us and determine the things that we want to do. We are a nonprofit. Essentially, what we'd like to do is take over, maybe that's not a good word, I shouldn't be taking over anything, but we'd like to assume the responsibilities that the downtown development association committee kind of thing has done in the past.